BBC TV18, celebrating 15 years of leadership.
Welcome back to Indianomics. We have been speaking with Professor TCA Anant, the Chief Statistician of India, on the new method of computing GDP and CPI, that is the consumer price inflation. Professor Anant, the CSO has not given us any back projection of GDP, which is why we are not able to understand whether 6.9% is a good growth number or a bad growth number. I mean, if the years 2004 to 2008 in the new series showed a growth of say 11 or 12%, then we can understand why even the 6.9% feels like a recession. When are we going to get that back projected data?
Look, let me ask you this. The back series is a problem, and I'll explain the principal element of the problem. This series incorporates two major types of changes. One of them is in manufacturing, where we are using corporate accounts much more aggressively. And the database which we are being able to tap for this purpose is the Ministry of Corporate Affairs database. Now, this database does not extend going backwards. Okay? What you have is the best information which you will have going backward is the RBI sample, but remember there's a huge difference between the two. RBI sample is about 2,000 companies, and that's at the upper end of the scale. The MCA database covers virtually all companies, listed and unlisted as well. Now, a careful back series which will be analytically satisfactory to analysts is not going to be that straightforward. Rules of thumb may be worked out, and which is what we hope to do in the coming months as well. But you have some indicative idea of the fact that this series is showing growth better. Part of the reason why it is showing growth better is because in manufacturing we have moved from an establishment to an enterprise base. So in effect we are picking up one element of value-added growth which was earlier not being picked up in the old series. And that is the improvement arising out of improved corporate performance, bottom line performance, not sales or production performance. There has been academic writings which has been showing that corporates, through a variety of means of belt tightening, restructuring, efficiency gains, etc., have improved their bottom lines or maintained their bottom lines even when the top line was dropping off. How long will this be sustained? Not so easy to say. What have been, how far in the past does it go? Again, not easy to say. You'll have to go back and reread the corporate studies to work this out. That can give you some guidance as to what would have been the growth going backwards. As I said, we are in the process of doing it, but because we are using a new data for which analog does not exist, the challenge is enormous. Now, just because of this, you can't say don't use it, because it obviously captures current reality much better.
No, I'm not saying that at all. No, Professor Anant, I'm just trying to get a historical perspective of this 6.9 and 7.5% GDP data. You intimately know this data all the way back from, 2004, 2005. Even if you haven't put anything on the website, can you give me any rough back calculation that you may have?
No, at the moment we have not done a back calculation. The back calculation will take some time. And let me point out to everybody who looks at it, even in the previous times when base revisions were done, back calculations become available with a lag. They are complex exercises, and you can't begin the exercise until first the new series is put in place. So that exercise is underway, but people will have to, in the meantime, we have given comparative figures. Till then, judgmental rules can be applied.
Okay. What about the back series for the CPI? Can we get that earlier?
CPI back series we have already released a certain extent with this, and I says we will probably release, because the CPI only goes back to 2010. There's not much of an issue. We will be giving the back series quickly. The GDP will be this thing. I don't have the timeline at the moment with me. We'll put it up in the website when we have figured it out.
No, actually for the CPI, you've given only 1 year back data. That is through the link factors. When can we expect the CPI back data, say, in 3 months, 6 months?
Let's try.
You know, Professor Anant, when you give a tall GDP number like 6.9% or 7.5% growth, how should a monetary policy maker understand this? Should he believe that there is no output gap left in the economy? If you know, that assumption somehow doesn't square with the facts.
Let me answer this question this way. You know, GDP, any value-added series or GDP in particular, can be decomposed into two elements: a quantum index or a quantum level and a value-added level. Any change in value-added will have a quantum side, quantity side, and a value side. Now, India doesn't have a lot of quantum indices, but we do have the index of industrial production for all its limitations, and the annual survey of industries, which will also give you value of output as well as employment. Okay. Now, these give you an idea of what the underlying quantum momentum in the economy has been. The other side is giving you what the value-added momentum is. Now, what you need to understand is issues of capacity, overheating or whatever is linked to growths in quantum. Now, this is a phenomenon. This form of analysis, by the way, is not new. Other macroeconomists in other countries do in fact do this, which is why you will find discussions of monetary policy in other countries will include discussions of the employment rate. And I think we will need to move in the same direction. We are separately planning to bring out, and that is also a very complex exercise, regular figures on employment. We hope that will get started soon. But until then, this understanding of the structure of GDP will be very important to gauge what is the appropriate approach to policy.
Okay, that's very interesting. The last bit that you are giving us, you're going to give us employment data soon. By when will we start getting it?
Look, we are working. A survey-based exercise is very time-consuming and requires a lot of logistics to be worked out. We are working on it. At the moment, we are hoping that we will be able to start the surveys from July, but data flow will obviously take much longer, probably a year more before it can get stabilized and start coming out as regular numbers.
In your press release, Professor Anant, while explaining the GDP at market prices, you say the tax is on production, not products. What do you mean by that?
There are two concepts in the GDP system. One is GDP at market prices, which includes all indirect taxes and subsidies as per the formula. That's not an issue. We also are now releasing something called GVA at basic prices. Basic prices differs from factor cost in one small but conceptually very significant way. Basic prices includes what are called production taxes and subsidies. That is, those taxes which are unrelated to the volume of production. For example, stamp duties, pollution charges, there are certain payments which you have to make which are unrelated to production. Those types of things are included. They're not, in terms of amount, they are much less than the product taxes, which are excise duty, sales tax and so on. But they are conceptually important, and the system of national accounts conceptual designation does not talk about factor cost. It says all costs which are essential to undertaking the process of production, which includes these taxes and subsidies which are, if you like, a precondition to production. So we have made the conceptual shift, but for people who wish to do it, we are giving the figures for production taxes and subsidies, but we may not be able to again give it the back series, because what happens is when you go back, this is some of the problems we'll have to sort out. This level of disaggregation and tax data started becoming available to us only more recently when the tax information systems allowed us to examine the data much more carefully.
Okay. On another issue, while measuring services GDP, I was told you all have used services tax this time around. Now, service tax is a young tax. It has been expanded to a larger category in the last 2 or 3 years. Now, some economists I speak to worry that did you smooth out this, expanding categories when you were estimating the amount of services GDP from the service tax?
In fact, the number of service sectors where service tax is used is not that large, but yes, it is used in some sectors. But principally because, again, I'll draw your attention to a major shift in policy which took place about 3 years ago. I think it was in 2012 or so, when they shifted service tax to 12-13, I think. When they shifted service tax from a positive list approach to a negative list approach.
Exactly.
And that meant now all services except a few are taxed, which made it feasible to, in fact, think of it as a source. Again, we are not using it as a source across the board. In certain service segments, it seems more appropriate to use than the earlier proxy indicators which were being used. Remember, where a direct indicator is not available, sometimes tax collections are a better indicator than that. So this has not been done in at the macro level, but it has been done at a 2-digit compilation category level, where in certain services these were used. The overall set is not that large, but it is significant as a conceptual change.
Okay.
The bigger change, let me just complete. The bigger change is in the use of sales tax in the segment of trade. That is a bigger change. When we talk about using indirect taxes, we are referring to both sales tax and service tax.
Okay.
That is in magnitude terms the larger change.
Okay. Just to end with CPI, do you already have the back projections up to 2010? Can you share something? Look,
yesterday we did a slide presentation where we gave the old and new series graphs and so on. That's why I'm saying the numbers are there. These two series in broad movement are virtually identical. So you can actually see that they are parallel. Whatever difference is there, okay, it's not a big difference. The geometric mean to arithmetic mean is a technical difference. But once you build it in, the series tracks each other fairly closely. We had also, I believe PIB has said that slides are also there in their website, or we'll be putting it up on our website. People can take a look at them.
All right, Professor Anant, thank you very much. Clearly, this is an endeavor at making the Indian statistical collection more sophisticated. And if we are going to get labor data, that definitely is going to be a big addition to understanding the Indian economy. Thank you very much for joining us. And with that, we wrap up this edition of Indianomics. Thanks for watching.
CNBC TV 18, celebrating 15 years of leadership.